Good morning, dear students. Good morning, the educational community. I am Tegwi Lionel Atud, teacher of computer science and ICT. Dear students, today in ICT, that is Information and Communication Technology, which is going to be for the class of upper seats, those preparing for the 2020 GCE. We are going to proceed with lesson 25 of our syllabus, which talks on project management tools. In this lesson, students are going to gain the knowledge about the various project management tools, which are Gantt chart, PERT charts, which is project evaluation and review techniques, or program evaluation and review techniques. We are also going to talk on the critical path method, which is also known as the network diagram. We will also look at another project management tool known as the project work plan. As we move through this, we will also be seeing how to interpret a Gantt chart and how to calculate the critical path. The lesson will end with two activities. The first one will be talking on the Gantt chart, and the second activity will be talking on the PERT chart. So, sit well, be attentive, take a pen and your notebook in order to take down some few points which will enable you have a successful class. We are going to focus today on the opposite class, and our subject today will be Information and Communication Technology, abbreviated as ICT, subject code 9795. We will continue with our topic 4, which was based on the project management and system development. The last lessons, lesson 24, today we are going to continue with lesson 25, which is project management tools. Lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, learners should be able to 1. List project management tools. Define Gantt chart and project evaluation and review technique chart. 3. Define the critical path method, abbreviated as CPM. Calculate critical path. 6. Know the notion of earliest start, earliest finished, last start, and last finished. And lastly, interpret a Gantt chart using project management terms. In our previous lesson, we learned of the following. Yes, from our previous lesson, I would like some students to list to us what we studied last time. Yes, project management. What is project management? Yes, it is a planned process to achieve a specific objective through well-defined activities which have a period, resources allocation, and a well-defined budget. That was very good. Yes, what else again can we get from the last project, from our last lesson? Project management. That is good. What is project management? Yes, project management is the process of planning and controlling the development of a system within a specific time frame. Or we can also say project management is the planning, implementation, tracking, and control of projects. Yes, who else again can give us another thing we learned from the last lesson? System development life cycle. That is good. What then is system development life cycle? Yes, it is a structural step-by-step approach in developing a system that creates a separation of duties among technology specialists and users. That is good. Now, can someone name the 6 stages of a system development life cycle? Yes. Problem definition, also known as investigation. Second stage, analysis. Third stage, design. Fourth stage, development or testing, also called construction. Fifth stage, implementation or installation. And the last stage, support, or maintenance. Can someone name 4 features of a project? Yes. Well-defined and achievable objectives. Yes. Provision for risks and risk management should be defined. Budget allocation for the various activities in the project cycle should be made. Yes. A project should be sustainable. Yes, as we can see, this is not all. We have others which we learned in the last lesson. We also talk on terms like the lag time, the lead time, work breakdown structure, abbreviated as WBS, the critical path, the slack time, the critical tasks. Do not forget, these terms will really help you in order to work fluently with some of the project management tools. Dear children, our lesson today is focused on project management tools. Project management tools are used by project managers to better manage their projects. Examples of the tools we are going to study today are project work plan, project evaluation and review technique, critical path method, also called network diagram, and Gantt chart. One, project work plan. The project work plan is the mechanism that is used to manage the tasks that are listed in the work breakdown structure. The work plan is a table that lists all the tasks or activities in the work breakdown structure. With the project work plan, a project manager can tell if the project is ahead or behind schedule, how well the project was estimated, and what changes need to be made to meet the project deadline. Also, it contains information about important tasks, such as people who are assigned to perform the task, the actual time task will take, and a variance between estimated and completion. Number 2, program evaluation and review technique, also called project evaluation and review technique, abbreviated as PERT, pronounced as PERT. It is a technique used for the management of large-scale projects. It is a network analysis technique that can be used when the individual task time estimates are fairly uncertain. That is, when the time estimate is not really known, we can use the PERT. The PERT charts are the best way to communicate task dependency because they lay out the tasks in the order in which they need to be completed. Here we have a diagram of a PERT chart which the circles shows the various activities or tasks. The line linking each circle shows the duration of the tasks. They all begin from a start point drawn to the right up to the end point or end task of the activity. In this our diagram, the first activity has 2 weeks and which moves to the next activity with the letter R, which has 2 weeks also. It moves to the next activity U, which has 1 week. And we also have another part which begins from P, which is the first activity, passing through C, passing through S to the last activity. And the last part of it is Q and C. We will come back to this when we are performing calculations under the critical part. From the above diagram, we have another diagram again, but this time around, the diagram begins from one node, which is the first activity labeled 1, and ends on the last node on the right, labeled 6, which is the last activity. So this PERT chart has a single start node and a single finish node, different from some that may have 2 start nodes and 2 end nodes. Number 3, critical path method. The critical path method is a network analysis technique used in planning, scheduling, and controlling complex routine activities. It is used to identify the critical path in the network diagram. The critical path is also the longest path from the project inception to completion. The critical path shows the entire task that must be completed on schedule for a project to finish on schedule. So, with the critical path, it is seen that any task that takes longer time than it was scheduled will affect the project finish time negatively. Also, every task on the critical path is called critical task. Here is a diagram of a critical path model. On the left, we have the oval shape with the start, and on the right, the oval shape showing the finish of the project. The circles are called the nodes, which indicates the various tasks. They are labeled with letters. The arrows shows the duration of the project. Here we are going to see the calculation of the critical path. We have to be very attentive here because there are some notions we need to be familiar with. When calculating critical path and project duration, it is important to understand three duration-related terms. The terms are not familiar, are not strange to us, but they are familiar because we have seen them in the project management term. We have the lag, the lead, and the float. The first two are determined by the project team. The third, which is the float, is created by the schedule itself and is a result of the varying path length. When determining float, we first calculate the following. One, the early start. 2, the late start. 3, the early finished. And 4. The above are often placed in the top and bottom of the note or boxes that represents the tasks in the network diagram as seen below. The early start and early finish are indicated at the top of the box. The late start and late finish are shown at the bottom. The early start is at the top left of the box, and the early finish is at the top right of the box. The late start is at the bottom of the box, and the late finish are shown at the right bottom of the box. The duration is at the center of the box. Here we have a network diagram showing the critical path duration in days. The circle on the left represents the start. The circle on the right represents the end of the project. The first box is activity 1.0. At the top left, is 0, which indicates the early start, as was shown in the box above. And know that every project starts from 0. So the earliest start here is 0. And in the center of the box we have 15 days, which is the duration. Again, the bottom of the box, which has 0, indicates the late start, and on the right top is the earliest finish, which is 15. The 15 comes from the 15 day. So from 0 to 15, we have the duration of the tax, because our tax is 15 days. From there, if we move to activity 2.0, we see that activity 2.0 will start on the 15th day, having its earliest start day as 15. But earliest finish date is 45, because we have to add 30 days plus the 15 days of the first activity, meaning activity 2.0 takes 45 to completion. The rest goes with the other tasks. So, as seen in our diagram, early start and finish begins with the start box and proceed along the path to the right. They are calculated as follows. ES, which is earliest start, is equal to EF of preceding tax adjusted for either the late or lead if present. For the first tax in our diagram above, earliest start is always equal to 0, while earliest finish is calculated by adding earliest start plus the duration. From our diagram above, we see that in tax 1, the earliest start is equal to 0 and the earliest finish is 15. Therefore, 0 plus 15 gives us 15 days. The late finish is also calculated as follows. LF equal to LS of successor tax adjusted for either the lag or lead if present. For the last tax, the one closest to the end of project cycle, that is LF, is always equal to the LF of the entire project. Thus, the LS is equals to late finish minus the duration of the tax. In tax 1, the late finish is equals to 15 minus 0, which is equal to 15. The next thing is the float, which is calculated by subtracting the late finish from the early finish for each tax. As shown on the diagram, there is no float for items on the critical path. But however, activity 3.0 has 60 days float. In our video on the exercises, we are going to see how these calculations are effectively carried on. tracing parts on the PERT chart. Remember, we have talked of the critical part, and the critical part is also defined as the longest part in the PERT chart. For us to be able to trace the part, we begin from the start, follow the arrows and the letters until the end of the task. For example, the green arrows shows a part of the PERT, which are A, C, F, and I. That is part 1 that has been traced. The blue arrows shows the next part, which are A, D, H, and J. The next yellow arrow shows the next part, which are A, D, G, and J. The last part, which is the purple, has the part as B, F, and I. This tracing of the part on the PERT chart are very important, for that is what will permit you to calculate the critical part. Our video on activity will demonstrate. Calculating critical part. It is done by summing all the parts on the PERT, and the longest is the critical part. As seen in the figure below, we observe that the critical part is the part that has A, E, H, J. When we sum up all these activities, which is 5 plus 6 plus 6 plus 4 equal to 21, we obtain the critical part, the longest part through the PERT chart. Dear students, when you look at the PERT chart and this critical part method, their diagrams are almost equal, but they have a difference. Remember, the PERT chart is mostly used when the time duration are uncertain, and most of the time we use the PERT in situations where the project is not complicated. When we look on the first diagram, which is the PERT on the left, we see that the various parts are straightforward, but while on the critical part method, their own parts are not straightforward, and they often have tasks that are dependent and tasks that can run at the same time. For example, P and Q can be run simultaneously. We look next at the Gantt chart. It is a graphical representation of a schedule that helps to plan, coordinate, and track specific tasks in a project. This was put in place by Henry Gantt. A Gantt chart is used to 1. Manage or monitor the progression of tasks in a project by the project manager. 2. Ensures that the right equipment and workers are put in the right place at the right time. Advantages and disadvantages of Gantt chart. First column, advantages of Gantt chart. Point 1. Project duration can be easily identified. Point 2. Small project can easily be managed. 3. It communicates the high-level status of a project much faster and easier than the work plan or PERT chart. Disadvantages of Gantt chart. With the Gantt chart, the number of tasks are limited between 20 and 30. 2. Large tasks need to be break down. Thus, the use of work breakdown structure. 3. Too many tasks on the Gantt chart can become confusing to interpret. Here we have a diagram of a Gantt chart. On the vertical axis, we have the tasks that are labeled task A, B, C, and D. And on the horizontal axis, we have the time that is measured in weeks. We have week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The activities are also represented with horizontal bars, which are identified with their different colors. We will be using the Gantt chart to answer some questions and perform some calculation. As we move towards the end of our lesson, let's take these exercises to be done at home before we come to our integration activity. Question 1. What is a critical path? 2. Define the following: A. Gantt chart, B. PERT chart, and C. Critical path method. Dear students, as we discussed, we are going to view our activity 1 as will be demonstrated on the board. Follow keenly, for these are important activities that you will need in the exams. Right on the board here, activity 1, we have a Gantt chart. The Gantt chart has a vertical line that shows the various tasks. Task A, task B, task C, task D. And the horizontal line that shows the time in weeks. It is, the project has 7 weeks to carry on the project. So our activities are going to be as follows. Identify the following using the Gantt chart above. 1. We are going to look at the lag time. First, what is lag time? As seen in our previous lesson, lag time talks about the delay, or that time that was passed between the completion of a previous activity and the beginning of the successor activity. You cannot do this without using the Gantt chart. So, from our Gantt chart, we are going to identify that lag time. We look for the activity that has ended, and there is a time gap between that activity that has ended and the activity that is going to commence next. And when we look well, activity A, there is no gap between the finish time of activity A and the start time of activity B. So there is no lag time here. We look at activity B and C. Instead, we see that activity C starts even when the activity B has not yet been completed. So we cannot have the lag time here based on the definition of the lag time. We move on to activities C and D. When we look well, activity C will end on the 5th week, and before activity D commences, between the 5th and the 6th week, it shows that nothing will go on here, and there this gap here is what we refer to as the lag time, because there is a time gap that takes place here before the next activity starts. So our lag time will be 1 week. That is it for the lag time. We look next at the lead time. The lead time from the definition is telling us that it is an activity that can commence while the previous activity is going on. We still come back to our Gantt chart because that is what can only help us to be able to accomplish this. Activity A completes in the 2nd week, and immediately activity B commences. So we cannot have the lead time here. Activity C, B and C, from there we see that activity B has 2 weeks to be completed. But when we look at it, before completion, activity C has commenced while 1 week was still left for activity B to complete. And so from our definition, we see that between this and this there is a lead time. And that lead time again is 1 week, because activity C commenced when 1 week was still left for activity B to complete. So we still say our lead time is 1 week. And it is where we obtain that time. And so these activities can go on while the other one is not yet completed. Next one is project duration. Here the project duration is looking at the time that that project will start right up to completion. Here we are only going to look at where activity 1 commences and where activity A commences and where activity D ends. With that, the time duration or the project duration here is 7 weeks. The last one is dependency tasks. Dependency tasks are those tasks that cannot go on without their predecessor having started or before completing their predecessor task. Here, 1, we cannot commence activity B without completing activity A. So, activity B depends on activity A. Next again, activity C depends on activity A and B, because they must have completed activity A, start activity B to a certain point before activity C will commence. So activity C depends on A and B. We said here activity B depends on A. Next again, activity D also depends on activity A, B, and C. So these are the dependent tasks. Activity A does not depend on any task. So that is why it is not mentioned. It cannot be a dependent task. Only those tasks that comes after when a particular task has commenced is known as a dependent task. So that is the end of activity 1. We will be moving on to activity 2. Activity 2, PERT chart. A PERT chart is made up of notes or circles that represent the activities that are labeled by letters of the alphabet. The arrows show the time duration of each activity. In this activity, we are going to calculate the critical part. Remember, the critical part is the longest part in the project. You cannot obtain the critical part without identifying all the parts on the PERT chart and getting their duration. So we are going to begin. First part 1. We look at part 1. Beginning from A. We are going to use different colors to identify the parts with. From here we have A, C, A to C. From A to C, we have again the part moving to F. From F, the part continues to I. Part 2. Part 2 will be, change our color, A to D. So A, D. From D, we move to H. From H, we move to J. That is it for part 2. Look for part 3. Begin from A to E, A, E. From E we move to H. From H we move to G. Fourth part, part 4, we have A to Z, A, Z. From Z we have Z to G. From Z we move to J. That is it with our fourth part. We look at the fifth part. The fifth part will be B to F. And F to I. That is the end of this part, and when we look through, we have gone through all the various parts. Now, after obtaining the parts, we identify their duration, what is written between the notes beside the lines that connects the various notes. So part 1, A to C is 5. So we'll sum 5 plus C to F, which is 6 plus 6. And F to I, which is 2 plus 2, to obtain 5 plus 6, 11 plus 2, 13. Next, move to the second part and identify their time. We have blue. From A to Z is 3. Plus D to H is 1, plus H to J, which is 3 plus 3. We obtain 3 plus 1, which is 4 plus 3, 7. Move next to the third, which is A to E. A to E is 4. 4 plus E to H is 2, plus H to J, which is 3. We obtain 2 plus 4 plus 2, which is 6 plus 3, 9. Move next to the fourth, which is A to Z is 3, plus Z to G, which is 2, plus G to J, which is 4. 3 plus 2, 5 plus 4, 9. And the last one, B to F is 3, plus F to I, 2 equal to 5. These are the various path duration we have obtained. And from here, our critical path will be the path with the longest time duration. And from there, we see that the path with the longest time duration is 13. So the critical path is equal to 13. So dear students, these are the various methods in which project managers can be able to use the project management tools in order to carry on a successful project. Remember, a delay in the project time may cause a detriment to the project objectives, and the misuse of resources in the project can also cause a detriment to the project objectives. Thanks. Make sure you carry on the exercises that are given and prepare yourself very well for the GCE. Does not wait for late comers. Thank you.